race fans, I am Stock Car Scott, and this is my little show about racing called In the Pits. This week, let's start with a little backtracking. First, I know I went way long last week, but I had a lot to cover, and, well, y'all all know.
You rap discipline.
I've been told that when it comes to stock car racing, I can talk the ears off of a statue. And now there is video evidence. In one of my stories about Talladega, I shortened the track by a third of a mile, I think. But don't worry, Talladega is still 2.66 miles long. This past weekend, Fox Sports 1 did a little catching up on their own. They showed a few races in tape delay from Loudon with modifieds and K&N Pro East Series races. They were actually a couple of really good races. I know. Last week I said that I don't really care for racing at Loudon, but one must watch stock car racing where one finds it. An extra irritant that Fox Sports 1 has now hired Todd Bodine to help out announcing some of the races from the booth. And I just never was a fan of the onion head there. Young Ben Rhodes in the K&N East Series race in the number 41 Chevrolet was starting from a 5th consecutive pole position, hoping for his 5th K&N East win in a row. That would have tied him with Ricky Cravens for most consecutive wins in that series. Rhodes led early, but it just not was going to be his day. After he got passed by Gray Galding in the Krispy Kreme donut car, the number 41 ran afoul of competitors and officials alike. On the last lap, the first and second place cars, two guys, I can't remember their names, but anyway, they took each other out in turn 3. And so the third place driver, Jesse Little, who's the son of Chad Little from Spokane, Washington, won in a Chevrolet. It was a really good race for Loudon. But anyway, there was also a broadcast on Fox Sports 1 of the modifieds there at Loudon. Modified racing seems to be what Loudon was built to host. They had sometimes 2-3 passes for the lead in one lap, and on the last lap they had 3-4, I couldn't count how many times people were passing each other. Now, Cup regular Ryan Newman was there. He ran up front most of the day in the 100 lap event, but it was number 44 Bobby Santos who won over veteran modified racer Ted Christopher in the number 13. Now, there was another all-star sort of modified race there at New Hampshire that was on that weekend, and I saw part of it on Fox Sports 1, I think it was Sunday, but I missed everything but the very end. I did get to see that Ryan Newman won the race in number 7, but the interesting thing was it seems that the race was originally broadcast on that phantom Fox Sports 2 channel, wherever it is. And hopefully it'll be rebroadcast sometimes on Fox Sports 1, so I'll get to see it. They're re-showing the 100 lap race quite a few times, so hopefully they'll get a 30-minute spot where they can work that one in again. But speaking of Fox Stinks 2, that is where the ARCA race was shown live last Saturday, but I had to follow it online while I was watching the Indy Racing League race at Toronto as they struggled with weather all day. Now, the IRL race was eventually postponed until Sunday, but the ARCA race went on, and of course I didn't get to see it until I recorded it later on Fox Sports 1 at midnight. Got to watch it later in the weekend. And this whole thing with the Fox Stinks 2 not being on Comcast cable is really getting old and upsetting. You see, it gets at me a little bit. But anyway, when I did finally get around to watching the ARCA race, the 100-lap Chicagoland race was really good to the young drivers. They all seemed to be having a pretty good day. The number 23, Spencer Gallagher, led the first 80 laps and didn't smash one pumpkin, but he fell off to 6th place by the end of the race. The eventual winner was the number 98, Mason Mitchell, who I saw compared online to Sterling Marlin because he had finished second so many times without winning, including the last race that ARCA had in Winchester, Indiana. And that's before this weekend when he finally got his first ARCA win. That win for Mason Mitchell in the number 98 Applebee's Ford vaulted him into the points lead, making the day for young Mason Applebee-licious. Number 90, Grant Enfinger of Mobile, Alabama, fell to second in points with his top 10 finish, and veteran ARCA racer champion Frank Kimmel is now third in points. Oh, let me wet my whistle here. Sterling Marlin Glass, I think we just mentioned him.
Did you just say Applebee-licious?
Yes, I
The
did.
viewers are wanting to know, did you really say Applebee-licious? Right on, man. Way to work that one into the show.
The other race I followed online was the Montana 200 at Montana Raceway Park in Kalispell. My wife and I have visited that track a couple of times to see K&N West Pro West Series races, and it is a great little track. Put it on your bucket list, folks. It's a wonderful place to see racing. Now, I was following online, found out Friday that my favorite local driver, four-time Montana 200 champion, Gary Lewis, had blown an engine in his number 73 Chevrolet SS. And unfortunately this year he had to sit out the Montana 200, but he still helped out in the pits a lot because he's just that kind of guy. Now, with that, the number 10 of Owen Riddle, the Yakima track champion, he set the best time on Friday. Saturday, before the big event, was a last chance race, qualifying race, where there were a bunch of really strong cars, including the number 64 of Garrett Evans of Wenatchee and also the number 83 of Braden Havens of Spokane. They both transferred into the 200 lap main along with 6 other drivers. A little bit later, the big race started, and many of the race fans posted that first couple of laps to Facebook. And those that followed for the first 10 laps with their cell phones were rewarded with a big wreck in turn 3 that took out about half a dozen cars up near the front and allowed several cars from the last chance race to advance to the top half of the field, including Havens and Evans. Owen Riddle, on the other hand, he led most of the first half of the race, but he had problems around lap 90. And that took him out because I didn't see that he restarted after the break for the second 100 laps of the race. So number 64, Garrett Evans, led much of the second half of the race, and he eventually won, followed by the number 100 of BJ Tedrick, who I read online finished the last 60 laps with no power steering. And then third was Montana native Bodie Morton in the number 77, with number 42, Jeff Jefferson, in fourth. Now, number 42 is the Natchez Flash. I'm sorry.
Notches.
Notches. The notches, like notches out of a belt. Okay, notches. In the South, where I'm obviously from, it's Natchez, Mississippi. But Notches, the Notches Flash, Jeff Jefferson finished in fourth for the Montana 200, and number 83, Braden Havens, finished fifth.
And I could be wrong. It could be Natchez. It could be. I don't know.
Someone will tell me at the next race.
I'm sure. Or,
someone will tell me.
Or on YouTube or Facebook, someone will tell you.
How are they going to say how something's pronounced?
Well, it's like nacho cheese to me, man. It's Natchez.
Anyway.
Cheese. On with the show.
Because the Sprint Cup Series was off this past weekend, the big NASCAR event was the Nationwide Series 300-mile, 200-lap contest at Chicagoland. The Please Come to Illinois and Visit Us Some.com 300 or whatever the name of it was really a terrific race. And I am quickly becoming a big fan of the winner, Chase Elliott, the son of Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Georgia. He led the most laps, so the rest of the field spent much of the evening chasing Chase in his number 9 Junior Motorsports Napa Auto Parts Camaro. This kid seems to be the real deal, as the king, Richard Petty, might say. Chase Elliott seems to have inherited racing smarts. He just gets it. He gives other drivers room on the track. He tries different lines out there on the track. He behaves when he's on pit road. And most importantly, he wins. And a big plus is that he looks good and he sounds even better. Folks, he is a sponsor's dream. You're going to be seeing a lot of him for a long time in NASCAR. Now, back to the race. Brian Scott, no relation to Stock Car Scott, and the number 2 Camaro started on the pole, flanked by his Richard Childress Racing teammate Ty Dillon in the number 3 Camaro. They finished 6th and 5th respectively, and because Brian was the best finisher of the 4 Nationwide Dash for Cash eligible drivers, he pocketed a cool $100,000 extra. He will again be eligible for the next Nationwide Dash for Cash when they're at the Brickyard this weekend. Also eligible will be Scott's teammate Ty Dillon, as well as winner of the last race Chase Elliott and second place finisher Trevor Bayne in the number 6 Roush Mustang. Now, 3rd and 4th finishing places for the Chicagoland race were claimed by Sprint Cup regulars. Cali Wonder Kid, number 42, Kyle Larson's in the Target Chevy finished 3rd, and Enumclaw native Casey Kane in the Junior Motorsports number 5, Great Clips Camaro finished 4th. Of course, Great Clips, that's where Stock Car Scott gets his haircut. Remember Eric Jones from last week that I was telling you about? The rookie truck driver from last weekend that won the race? Yeah, he finished 7th in the Nationwide race in Joe Gibbs Racing Equipment in his very first Nationwide start. Now, to the points. The number 7, Regan Smith, driving for Junior Motorsports, lost the driver points lead after a really crummy night of racing. His car wasn't set up right. He didn't seem to have a handle at all on Chicago. He lost the points lead to his teammate and race winner Chase Elliott, who added his 3rd victory in his rookie season. The 3rd place in points goes to Joe Gibbs Racing driver number 11 Toyota, Elliott Sadler of Virginia, like the guy who's clapping his hands. So, 4th is Ty Dillon driving in his Pop Pop's car, and rounding out the top 5 is his teammate Dash for Cash winner Brian Scott, no relation, but I kind of wish he was with that $100,000. Anyway, next race of the weekend was, take a break. Next race of the weekend was at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday. The German Grand Prix at Hockenheim started Saturday with Nico Rosberg driving a Mercedes to the pole during qualifying. And all the German homies cheered, yay, except for the Sebastian Vettel fans. All this while Lewis Hamilton, who wrecked in the first round of qualifying, had to change the transmission and had to start way back in 20th on the grid. So on the start come Sunday, Rosberg jumped out to a substantial lead that he would maintain all day long, while a few grid spots back during the start, behind him there, Felipe Massa got into a big wreck with Kevin Magnuson, and Moss's car went over.
Oh, Lordy Master done flipped his car.
Don't worry, Philippe was okay, but his Williams Mercedes was kaput. Rookie Magnuson went on to finish in the points in 9th place. Now, in the meantime, my favorite driver, Lewis Hamilton, had his work cut out for him, starting way back in 20th. By halfway, Lewis had fought his way up to 5th through superior driving techniques and strategic pitting. But he incurred front wing damage in a run-in with his old McLaren teammate, Jenson Button. And of course, that little bit of damage on his wing would plague Hamilton's tire wear all the way to the end of the race. But even with the wing damage that they had to trim out instead of replacing, Hamilton was able to set fast time on lap 45. After his third pit on lap 50, Hamilton was able to work his way back up to 3rd place to get on the podium, but he was not able to get past Valtteri Bottas in the other Williams Mercedes. So it ended with Mercedes Power winning big time with Nico Rosberg in 1st, extending his points lead over teammate Lewis Hamilton, who finished 3rd behind Bottas, who garnered his 3rd consecutive podium finish. Now, on a sad note, it was during the Formula One broadcast that I learned of the passing of longtime racing enthusiast and actor James Garner, best known for his starring role in the 1966 John Frankenheimer production of Grand Prix.
With Jessica Walter.
Great old movie. You should check it out sometime. I think they show it on like Turner Movie Network, Turner Movies anyway, every once in a while in the widescreen format. So I grew up watching James Garner in the movies and on TV, and you know he's really going to be a talent that's going to be missed. But back to racing. Also on Sunday was the doubleheader for the Indy Racing League on the streets of Toronto, Canada, that was caused by the rainout of the first race on Saturday. So the IRL officials decided, in their infinite wisdom, to shorten both races to 65 laps and run them both on Sunday.
You certain that's infinite?
Sebastian Bourdais led the field to green in the race number 1, but there was a big wreck on the first lap that really slowed things down for a while. But after that, the race ran fairly smoothly, and Bourdais was able to cruise to his first IRL victory in several years, since 2007. Helio Castroneves was 2nd. Tony Kanaan was 3rd, all in Chevrolet powered cars in a Honda sponsored race. In the second race, Mike Conway was able to secure his 2nd win of the season, while Tony Kanaan finished 2nd in this race, with Will Power 3rd and Charlie Kimmel finishing 4th, all in Chevrolets. It was a pretty decent day of racing through the streets of Toronto, made almost unwatchable by the announcing of a former open-wheel racing driver I just never liked, Paul Tracy.
He's no Jackie
Canada.
Stewart.
No, he is not. And to explain, all I can say is how many of you folks that I see on Facebook, how y'all feel about Kyle Petty and his race announcing abilities. Well, that's that's exactly how I feel about Mr. Tracy. He was unlikable as a driver, and even more so as an announcer. But
And he's ugly.
one entertaining thing he did before the race, before the second race, that is, in between the two races, was that he gave the mayor of Toronto a full-speed trip around the track in the pace car. It left me wondering if that was as big a rush as anything else tried by Rob Ford.
Crackhead.
There you go. He's got some bad habits. Oh, but anyway, last night, back to NASCAR news. was one of the most anticipated races of the season. Last night was the second Mud Summer Classic when the Camping World Truck Series races in the dirt at Tony Stewart's premier half-mile Eldora Speedway near Roseburg, Ohio. And you folks thought I wasn't going to talk too much about dirt. Well, I didn't know it was going to be this soon. But anyway, there were lots of Sprint Cup drivers in attendance. Kyle Larson was there in a number 32 Glad Silverado truck. I think it was prepared by Turner Scott Motorsports. And Austin Dillon was there in a number 2 Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet. There were also nationwide drivers like John West Townsley in the Zaxby's Chicken Toyota and Ty Dillon in the Bass Pro Shops Chevrolet. There was also Mr. I Will Race Just About Anywhere, Kenny Schrader, and on the pole was last week's Truck Series winning rookie Eric Jones in his very first race ever on dirt. Now, after a bunch of qualifying heat races and a last chance race, 30 trucks lined up for the first 60 lap segment of a 3-part 150 lap race. The first segment was led mostly by Bubba Wallace after his teammate Eric Jones had trouble.
Shrimp salad.
Now,
Shrimp sandwich.
the trouble was probably like a cut tire or something, so he fell back. And during the first competition caution break, Darrell Wallace Jr., Bubba, was in the lead with the number 54 KBM Toyota, followed by Ty Dillon in the number 3 Silverado. And third was Jeb Bush in his number 13 truck after he had just used up Ron Hornaday to get to third. Now, during the next 50 laps, there were some wild passes, some 360-degree spins, and a lot of hot dirt action throughout all 50 laps. The number 32, Kyle Larson in the Glad Chevrolet, spun himself on the front of Ty Dillon's truck a full two full 360s all the way around twice. And of course, this cut one of Ty Dillon's tires there on the Bass Pro Shop Chevy. So he had to come into the pits. And then his crew, Ty Dillon's crew, got him in trouble by fueling the truck while they were changing tires, which was a no-no last night. Yep.
Dummy.
But Dillon was able to get the lucky dog pass during the next competition caution for the last 40 laps, so he ended up on the lead lap. Now, during that last segment, things got really crazy. Kyle Larson proceeded to whip his truck like a rented plow mule. I mean, he used the Glad truck plumb up by just trying to catch Bubba Wallace and then trying to pass him. You know, catching somebody's one thing, passing them's completely different, and I'm learning in the dirt it's even more so. The TV guys said that Kyle Larson hit the wall over 300 times. The only undented place on Kyle Larson's truck was his roof. And that poor truck looked like it was a candidate for Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s race car graveyard. And I'd like to thank 2 of my Facebook friends for those last 2 great lines. Bubba was the eventual winner, and it was his second race of the season, followed by former champion Ron Hornaday Jr., young gun Ryan Blaney, and veteran Kenny Schrader. And rounding out the top 5 was Ty Dillon in Pop Pop's truck. Well, that ended a really rough night of racing, folks, but it was a great second time around for the Mud Summer Classic, and I was glad to get to see the end of it this year, because last year I got about halfway through it, and then I had to have my wife take me to the emergency room, and I had surgery the next day. So, you know, I was glad to see the end of this past race Wednesday. Now, race coming up this weekend. Well, we got NASCAR at the Brickyard. First is the Nationwide Series race, which will be another Dash for Cash race there at the Indianapolis Speedway. And then Sunday, we'll have the Sprint Cup drivers in the big Brickyard 400. Now, this begins ESPN's last season of NASCAR coverage for the foreseeable future.
Da-da-da, da-da-da.
NBC and its network of cable channels will start broadcasting NASCAR next summer. Now, ARCA this week will also be in the Indianapolis area at the Lucas Oil Raceway Park on Fox Sports 1 Friday evening at 6 p.m. Let's see, the Formula One has a second European Grand Prix this weekend in as many weeks, with the race Sunday morning in Hungary. I'm hoping that Lewis Hamilton, having won there a couple of times before, will be able to use this Grand Prix to gain or hopefully catch his teammate Nico Rosberg. But it seems Lewis really needs another retirement out of Rosberg in order to catch him. As for local racing this weekend, both South Sound and Evergreen have twin 50-lap late model mains on 3/8 mile tracks at the same price. So, I don't know, Evergreen's a whole lot closer and they are having an extra division on the card. So, hopefully Sunday you'll see new race video coming from Evergreen. Haven't decided yet though. And there we have it, folks. Thank you for watching In the Pits with Stock Car Scott. I really appreciate seeing the views on my YouTube channel grow, along with all the likes and the other positive comments on Facebook and YouTube. And I hope this helps you to enjoy motorsports more, because it helps me do just the same thing. So tune in next week and watch this crazy stock car fan. Until then, we'll see y'all at the races.